Welcome, my friend. Welcome to this cross yoga slow flow class and an introduction to the theme about stories. Now take a seat on your mat, and if you have any equipment, blocks and straps and stuff you feel like you want to use, maybe a blanket, bring that along as well. And then take whatever kind of comfortable seat you can on the floor. When you are seated the way that works for you, maybe you want to lean up against the wall or something like that, then you can close your eyes and you can bring your hands here on your thighs. Make sure your spine is erected up towards the sky, and maybe you want to take that nose slightly in so that your neck is stacked on top of the neck vertebrae are stacked on top of the other vertebrae. Take a few deep breaths. And then pay attention to where your thoughts are heading. If you're just sitting here and I wouldn't speak, where would your thoughts be going? It can be in something that happened today or a long time ago. Something that will happen or you expect to happen later. Just pay attention. No need to analyze, just notice. And then pay attention to what you're feeling right now. Again, don't judge or don't analyze, just how you're feeling. These two questions that I just asked you is a part of the story that you are telling yourself about your life. We tell stories about the past, the present, and the future. And our mind, whenever we feel something, maybe you feel something in your spine by now, your legs from sitting, all that input from your body, your emotions, is being brought to your brain, and the brain is trying to figure out what is going on. So it takes hold of things that are similar, past experiences that remind the brain of what you're experiencing right now, in order to make sense of it, to bring purpose to it right now, and in order to anticipate and prepare for what's coming next. That's what the brain is doing, taking the input from now, looking back in order to prepare for the future. And all of that takes place in a story. I'll invite you down to child's pose and maybe surrender your thoughts, your feelings. But before child's pose, do a little bit of free seated movements, or if you prefer, just breathe deeply a few times. So if you're ready to move into child's pose, get some distance in between your knees. Bring your buttocks behind and down in the direction of your heels. Forehead on the mat, and maybe you want to bring your palms up. Open palms, your arms are resting on the floor. Now there are stories that you tell about yourself, but you are also part of a story that I believe God has made. I'll come back to that, but for now, maybe just release or surrender whatever was on your mind when I asked you what you were paying attention to and what you were feeling. And surrender can be done by mentioning it and picturing God, whatever it looks like for you, kind of receiving what you're giving, good and bad. If you're ready, you can bring the palms down on the mat again. Rise up from child's pose, tabletop. So you might want to take the knees a little bit closer towards each other. And do a few cat cows. And when I say stories that we tell, don't think of stories as fairy tales. So that's a different thing. That's often supernatural and a little bit different. I'm saying stories that we think to be true. Because we think them to be true, they become our truth. But they don't necessarily actually need to be truth, but it's the truth that we're living in, the reality that we're living in. And as we become more aware of the stories that we share, or talk to ourselves about, we can also release some of those false stories that we might be telling ourselves, about others, about God. And that's what I'll be coming back to in this small themed thing about stories. Tuck the toes under and find downward facing dog. So fingers more to the front, spread them out. Soften your elbows, soften your shoulders a little bit. And maybe bending one knee at a time. A story that you might tell yourself about yoga is that it's hard, or it's difficult, or it makes you feel good, or something like that. But maybe just stay a little bit expectant today that the story that you have about yoga might not be what is the real thing for you today. Now bring your feet to the top of the mat. Hang forward, release your wrists. And then finding chair pose. In this chair pose, we'll warm up. You're gonna take the feet together. So you'll stay put. I'm just gonna turn so you can see. Take the feet, the knee, the thighs as much as possible together, what works for your body, and bring the arms up in chair pose. You're gonna do a few twists, but keep the hips still. As you exhale, you can bring your core, your chest towards your left side. Bring the arms out for an open twist. Reach to the middle, keep the legs bended. Inhaling, and then you exhale, moving to the other side. Inhale. And exhale. All right, let's reach up. Let's stand tall for now. Mountain pose. Bending our knees, twisting. Exhale. Reaching up, stretching our legs. Inhale. And exhale. Reach up. Bending, exhale. One more on each side. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. And you stand tall. Maybe you get a little bit more distance in between your feet so you don't have to worry about balance. Fold the hands behind your head. Push the back of the head into your hands and push the hands into the head gently. Take the elbows apart. And then release. Balancing on your left foot, so bring your right knee up, maybe hug it in. And notice if you're breathing or if you somehow tend to hold your breath. Release the right leg and bring the leg and the foot to the back of the mat. We're going to do high lunge. So tuck the toes under, bending front knee over ankle, and lift the arms up overhead. And then pay attention to what's going on in your body rather than let your mind wander off. Where do you feel anything? Where do you feel a stretch right now? Where do you start to feel fatigued? And release. Bring both hands and the shoulder here on the inside of the front leg. Bring the back knee, which will be the right knee, down, and you can always kind of wiggle the front foot further out to the side. Go for a lizard pose. So maybe you stay on your hands, move your hip further forward. We want some distance in between the back knee and the front foot to get the hamstring stretch and hip flexor stretch. And then you can kind of walk your hands back towards the right knee. You can always fold them out or bring a blanket in if it's too much. But you want to bring the left foot out to the side. I'm going to turn on my mat for you better to see, but for now I'm just going to stay this way. So stacking hip and knee, and go for the side stretch towards your left side. So you stay put. I'm just going to turn for you to be able to see. So you're going to move your hip towards the right side as you move your arm and core towards the left. And then opposite direction. So right hand comes down, heel, knee, hand alignment. For you might be the short end of the mat. And then bring that other arm up overhead. And if you want to, you can lift the back left leg up. Hover here. If you feel like taking a binding, you can bend the lifted leg, that maybe your hand can reach the toes. You kick the foot or the toes into the hand. Release. Turn around on the mat so that it makes sense to you to find your downward facing dog. You can do a few vinyasas here, which would mean plank. Untoast the knees, go to low plank. cobra or your up dog if you want to do a vinyasa. If not, just stay in down dog and breathe a few times here. So in general, when you think about the stories that you tell yourself about your life, about your future, and about your past, what color is that story? If you took supposed to draw a painting about your story, what colors would that incorporate? Walk your feet to the top end of the mat. Take the navel in and slowly rise up. Mountain pose. I know it's a little bit odd question to ask about colors, but for some of you it's like, yay, I like that. So, yeah. Left leg, all of these postures on the other side. Take the knee in, hug it in. And then release the left foot, leg. Take the foot back, high lunge yet again. Hip width distance on the long end of the mat here between the feet. And then reach the arms up. So you can always try to bring the left, that leg that is back, bring that left hip maybe slightly more forward. Feel it here. As before, where you felt the stretch. I think a lot of us feel things here in our hip flexors. The psoas is being quite stretched here. And you might feel the sensation of fatigue or tiredness in the front thigh that's carrying a lot of our body weight. One more breath. And then bring your hands down on the floor again on the inside of the front leg. Scooch the back foot maybe further back and bring the knee down. Lizard pose, it will be called. Some of you might be coming down on your elbows. You might have done that before as well. Walk your hands back towards the bended knee. Right knee comes out to the side again. You probably stay put on the mat. I will just turn for the sake of the video and the space here. So this time you're standing on your left knee. Your right leg is out. Hip, knee alignment. You might take a look at your own body. And left hand up over your head, reaching towards the right side. Feeling something in the left side body. Now, if you happened to find colors for that drawing of your story in the future, maybe that can tell you a little bit about if your stories in general are sad stories, worried stories, hopeful stories, anxious stories. And why do I ask these things? Because we can't change the stories of our lives. We can listen to God's story and where God puts us into the story, if we're just holding on to our own story without being aware of it. That's why I'm asking. Bring your hand down. The left hand, maybe lifting the left leg. If it's too much, just let it be on the floor. Again, if you want to go for the binding, you bend the top leg there. Kind of see if you can find it. Take the knee back. So you do a little bit of a back bend. I believe that God is taking the human experience, the human lives, into a story of hope. I really believe that before Christ, before the death and resurrection, there was not a lot of hope. But with Jesus' win over death and sickness and illness and all of that, there is hope. And that is the story that you and I are a part of. Release. And you can come down into tabletop. And before you find child's pose, do your cat. So take the spine up. You might not have experienced a lot of hope. Maybe you have. I hope that you have. But God is calling you into a story of hope, of deliverance, not completely here and now, but eventually. Flatten your spine, child's pose. So again, I get some distance in between my legs. Bring your hands to the front, and maybe again want to take the palms up like this for an open, vulnerable gesture. So listen to one of the things that God is calling you into. Just stay in child's pose and breathe as I read a passage. In Jeremiah 29, God says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Then you will call me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You'll seek me and find me, and when you seek me with all your heart, I will be found by you, declares the Lord. I will bring you back from captivity, and I'll gather you from all the nations and the places where I have banished you." So do you have a story about yourself and the future that also incorporates hope? And the hope is not in material things, but the hope is in God's love, God's promises, God's faithfulness towards every single one of us. If you absolutely love child's pose, you might stay for a few more minutes. If you want to find a rest, you make your way into resting pose, as I call it, on your back. You can choose butterfly before you rest, which will incorporate the sole of the feet together and the knee dropping out. in order to change the stories that you tell yourself about the past and the future, first you need to be aware, pay attention to the stories that you're telling yourself. And secondly, you need to repeat that truth that you want to incorporate as a part of your story. A future of hope, a future with maybe trusting that God will never leave you or forsake you. Resting pose, gather your knees, take your legs out to the side. Hands on the floor. Maybe having that open mind and that prayer in your heart for the things that you want to change about the stories that you're telling yourself. Please stay down on the mat, and I'll finish our time together with a prayer. So you just stay on your mat. You might want to take your hands on your chest as you're resting, if that makes sense. God, thank you that you are telling a story about us that is so good and so amazing and so healing and full of hope. That is almost hard to believe. And God, I pray that you will take mine and everyone who joined this class, our stories into your story, and help us to live in truth and in hope. Release any darkness, tiredness, sensations of defeat, and shine your light into these areas where we especially need that hope for the future. Momentarily here and forever with you in heaven. Amen. Please stay on the mat as long as you like. I'll finish the video now, but you can definitely stay down there. God's peace, and make sure you follow along in the next one. That's gonna be more about stories that we are telling ourselves about people around us.